Hello to the Logistics Point interviews. Today we are joined by Julian Fisher, founder and CEO of Jisp. We're going to talk about the coronavirus, effect of Brexit, and how retail has transformed during 2020. We're also going to cover what happens in 2021 and what technologies are going to be most important for retail and logistics in the next few years. So Julian, do you think that the rise of online retail will continue in 2021, and what will happen with the industry?
The retail sector has experienced a shift, a much greater shift to online. The shock for everybody has been how easy people have moved online. Mm-hmm. That's the shock really to the system is that not only have we been watching the online quantity of purchases increase year on year, but when faced with a necessity to buy online versus being able to go into the high street, specifically food items, convenience food, etc., your daily or weekly shop, people have moved online. Yes, there's been some supply chain issues, of course. The sudden surge of people demanding slots when systems weren't ready to cope. But actually, in the end, the market found a position and the retailers stepped up to support and protect their supplies and to ensure that, for the most part, people got what they needed. Mm-hmm. So it's inevitable that actually the move was something which people were able to do very easily.
As you said, people had different problems. So what were the lessons that small and large retailers learned during this time?
So, of course, with the sudden nature of stores not being able to support shoppers coming in the high street and everything moving, and the inevitable panic buying that occurs always in these situations, no matter what you say to people, there will be some who they'll take a tray of tins of soup or tomato, Heinz baked beans or whatever, that they will take more. They'll take more toilet paper for fear of not being able to get hold of any in the future. So you only need to have a slight increase in the demand of the usual products that we buy every day for there to be a sudden shortage. So what the retailers have done, of course, is that they have looked to their suppliers, they've readjusted their purchases, and they've checked to see where they are able to make better plans for future surges. So this is the important thing: is it's not what you do when everything is normal. It's more about what can you do when things are not normal, when there is a situation unprecedented as it is, like the pandemic. Very difficult to plan, but clearly the lessons from the first lockdown were that they had to act quickly. They had to step in and make decisions to reduce the number of products that you could buy. On the whole, the public would follow, especially if, for example, you're trying to make a purchase and the system that you're putting it through, self-scan device, for example, actually won't let you buy anymore because it's been programmed not to allow you. So these things actually make it easier for the retailer to be able to control. But certainly when these situations occur, whatever they are, that causes lockdowns or a shortage in supply of some sort of product or product range, the plans that they put in place to protect the supply chain is clearly what they have been looking at now. Now, interestingly, we're moving into Christmas.
Yep.
And at Christmas time, apart from the fact that the shops are closed typically over the Christmas day, not necessarily any other day, but certainly on Christmas Day, the majority of stores, the major stores, will be closed. Some convenience stores will be open. Of course, petrol stations and convenience stores will be open as well. But there is a considerable amount of buying that takes place leading up to Christmas. So the supply chains have already factored that in. So yes, there's been a call for stores to actually acquire more goods in preparation for Christmas and in preparation for the Brexit potential issues. But of course, this pandemic has challenged those supply chains, specifically around the idea that if there's going to be more lockdowns coming, which of course they're all fearful of, what they need to understand, what they need to be able to do, is have enough of the product in stock in their warehouses. And the challenge there has been that with Brexit looming, they've also been considering how do we factor in the potential of having some delays to being able to get hold of the products through the normal supplies.
How do you think retailers can prepare for unknown problems, let's say like Brexit and problems at the ports?
Yeah, so the preparations would have been in place many months ago. I mean, this is no surprise to anybody. So the orders which would have been in place probably around the early part of this year for Christmas would have been added to, and certainly when we hit the first lockdown, you can well imagine that they would have been looking ahead to potentially ramping up those orders, given that there was a lack of understanding as to where we would be. So the problem you've got is that when you don't truly understand where we're going to be, what situation we're going to be in, whether it's to do with the pandemic or whether it was to do with Brexit, how this was going to affect the autumn period and the winter with Christmas, the only thing you can do is effectively plan for the unknown, which is a very difficult thing to do. How do you plan for something you don't know? But in reality, what you do is you actually plan for a bit of both. You plan on the basis that your supply chain is going to be challenged, is going to be pressured, but equally, if it's not, what are you going to do with all the stock? So of course there is a limit clearly to how much goods that they can take on board, not least because the suppliers may not be able to meet the demand, but equally retailers can't warehouse all of that product necessarily. So huge logistical challenge for the stores. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we see on that TV program where you go into the what happens, the secret business of how retailers meet demand for products. When planning for the unknown, you have to kind of consider the two extremes, the extreme of not being able to acquire anymore because of a shutdown or because borders are closed, whatever, and then the other end, which is that things are pretty back to normal. But we do know that with Brexit, there was always going to be a period of difficulty whilst we adjust to the fact that there are going to be new regulations and there's going to be new documentation required. So the ports are going to have the backup of lorries all the way down the roads, all down the motorways. So the immediacy of products coming back into the country and leaving the country is going to be challenged, and that's as much the lorries going to collect as there is the lorries coming to supply. So an interesting and challenging time for sure.
And what is the role of technology in retail, and what are the most interesting technologies for 2021 and beyond?
Well, one of the greatest developments, of course, has been artificial intelligence and effectively being able to look at the numbers, the data, and analyze it and understand the signs, the trends. Now, the difficulty here is that when you throw something in like a pandemic and a lockdown, it completely destroys all possible data that you might have previously. Now, we have had previous lockdowns, so there is data already there. But the issue then is that you rely on software and an algorithm which, when thrown into a completely new situation that has not been understood, artificial intelligence is about learning. So it learns and then interprets what it's learning. So the first thing is that it will face the same challenges that we face when we're looking at the data, and then it learns from that and adjusts. So next time it might be able to see the trends before we can see them and understand them. Now, that's not to say that these algorithms are going to say we're going to be able to know when the government's going to create order a lockdown, but they will certainly understand where buying habits in stores are changing, and it then will adjust to the fact that it will then recognize those changes in buying habits and will then set about a response to that data to give the stores the ability to understand. So part of that mechanism that they use, of course, clearly is used all throughout the year with the changing weather patterns and understanding what those different patterns have looked like in previous years and how that's been worked out in terms of purchasing by consumers when we have different weather. So when it's sunny, does that mean people are buying more? Or when it's raining, are people comfort heating more when they're indoors? So there'll be patterns which they'll be looking for. In terms of in the high street itself and in retail, the technology that has been predominant in this pandemic has of course been contactless, being able to shop and purchase items without having to go into a queue, without having to be served by a member of staff, and being able to bag the items up yourself. So those things have obviously grown considerably at this time. And we've seen the traditional methods of payment, cash, falling away dramatically with a huge number of stores pulling out of cash entirely.
So how can you as a company help retailers?
Yeah, so I mean, our role in supporting stores has very much been around the consumer side of shopping, being able to purchase their goods for home delivery, click and collect, or for example, scan and go. So any store today can have the same technology that exists in the bigger stores. So being able to use your mobile phone to scan the barcodes, see the information. So there's a huge amount of new opportunity for retailers and for consumers, because we're bridging the two channels, the online channel and the offline. So the offline is the physical store itself, being able to go in and pick up the product, look at the product, engage with it. And the online is digital, being able to read up information, see videos, see reviews, find out what other people have said about a product, and making a payment. So gone are the days when the only mechanisms for paying was cash. Obviously, in the old days, it was checks, and then it went into credit cards. Today, it's contactless, mostly using your card or using your mobile to make that payment. So those mechanisms by which we are now engaging with the store through a contact. So it's not contactless in the sense we're not actually having some contact. We are, but it's not through the usual mechanisms of exchanging cash or putting a card into a machine. Mostly today, certainly in the United Kingdom, people are using their mobiles to make payments more than they were before. And an app like Jisp goes much further. It bridges information about products, opportunities, vouchers, coupons, adverts, empowering both the consumer and the retailer to understand more about their shopping and about the opportunities for getting more discounts, more promotions, more deals, etc. So for the consumer, it's about how can I get my shopping simpler and cheaper? And for the retailer, it's about how can I serve my customers better, give them the deals that we want to attract them to buy more, and understand why and what they're shopping, because that information is critical to understanding what do I do the next time something happens. Like next time it's sunny, next time it's raining, what happens if we go back into a lockdown, for example.
Thank you, Julian, for your time and for your insights. I'm sure that people who are watching found it very useful. And thank you for watching. If you would like to see more of the Logistics Point interviews, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.